the airline suddenly lost our luggage. Oh my gosh. All we had were the clothes on our backs that we had been wearing for about 3 days. I hold him away and say, "No," as he demanded, "Look here. Look at me." And then the train left. What? A friend of the taxi driver tries to fight me. The lights were off and I could hear dripping water echoing through the building. Oh my gosh, it's like a horror movie. Then I wake up 8 hours later, missing my debit card, iPod, cell phone, and travel guide. I would get poked, shown the porno, and laughed at. Like, that is literally unacceptable. I talk about travel, aviation, and personal and professional development. And if you weren't able to tell already, I also do a travel horror stories series. I'll link the full playlist down below, but I'd also love to hear your stories. Check out the description box below for how to send in your horror stories so that we can read it on the air and react real time. It's so easy. You just send me an email. And as I mentioned in my last video, until some horror stories start popping up into my inbox, I'm gonna be reading off of Reddit for right now, and I'm gonna pretend like they're writing into me. They're going to start with "Dear Natalie," and that's what we're gonna do until people start sending in their horror stories. And if any of this sounds fun to you, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss another horror stories video. And let's read our first story. This first story says, "Dear Natalie, after I graduated high school, my dad surprised my family with a vacation. This particular vacation was a 2-week Mediterranean cruise. We were all so excited for this. We packed our stuff and left the house to go to the airport. We had a layover in Amsterdam before we went to Rome, where our cruise was departing from. Our layover in Amsterdam was only a couple hours, but lo and behold, our first flight had some mechanical issues and got delayed for 2.5 hours. We thought that maybe the plane might be able to make up some of the time, but they were not able to. We missed our connection, and in turn, we actually missed the departure of our cruise. As soon as we landed in Amsterdam, my dad called the airline and got in contact with the cruise and planned all sorts of stuff. The airline took us all over the place and paid for all of our flights. Our dad got into direct contact with the captain of the ship and found out that there was actually another group of passengers from the States that had missed the departure as well. The captain got into contact with the airline and told them to get us to Santorini by a certain date and time. So we got there and found a beautiful hotel on the side of the mountain, just like you see in the pictures. But there was just one thing missing. In the midst of all this crap going on, the airline suddenly lost our luggage. No! Oh my gosh. Better yet, the boat was showing up the following day, and all we had were the clothes on our backs that we had been wearing for about 3 days. Oh my gosh, no. There were 2 or 3 times when the small Santorini airport called and said that they had our luggage, but they did not. Oh no. The captain called my dad and said that they would have a tender boat there to pick us up in about 2 hours. We were about to get on the boat with no luggage, and needless to say, we were all freaking out. No swimsuit, no clothes, nothing. Well, about 1 hour before the cruise ship arrived, the airport called us again and told us that they had our luggage. Okay. At this point, I'd be like, do you guys have some kind of a reference number? Can you send us a picture? Like, we have questions at this point. My father and I left to go to the airport, but we were not very positive about this because of their previous mistakes. When we got there our bags lay, sitting there like a lost treasure that we had finally discovered. Okay. This is positive so far. We picked them up, we got back to get my mom and sister, we went to the dock to get picked up by the tender. After all of this, we got to stay in a night for free in Santorini and in Amsterdam as well. Looking back, I'm glad that we got this extra experience, and since everything ended up working out, it ended up being okay. But I don't know what I would have said if we wouldn't have gotten our luggage. Yeah, I don't know either. Needless to say, my dad has always scheduled his flights to arrive in his departure city at least 24 hours in advance because of this. Yeah, that's a very, very good strategy, and that's a very good idea. And I actually tend to do the same thing, even when I'm traveling like regionally and not just internationally. Like this last trip that I had to Dallas, I've gotten in the habit where I just schedule trips at least 24 hours in advance of the actual event, maybe even a couple days before. Even if I think, oh man, I'm gonna be spending like so much time in this one area, like do I really need to be spending that much time? But I always end up thanking myself later, because chances are there's something that I'm gonna have to take care of at the hotel, like where I'll have to get on my computer and address that thing that comes up for work, or maybe there's a job that comes up in the city that I'm traveling to where I'm gonna need just a little bit more time than what I otherwise anticipate. So I definitely tend to do the same thing, and that's really cool that you at least got to have a free night stay in Santorini as well as in Amsterdam. But oh my gosh, lost luggage is the worst. It hasn't happened to me yet. No, knock on wood. It hasn't happened to me where I lost my luggage. It hasn't happened. My baggage has gotten delayed. My baggage has definitely been damaged, but I've never had to wait like 3 days for luggage. Like, I would not be able to imagine the stress. Like, first of all, how wonderful for the captain to like go out of his way to try to like make all of these accommodations to make sure that you guys are at least able to join them for that one part of the cruise. I don't entirely know how cruises work because I've never been on one, actually. I've never been on a cruise. So I don't know, like maybe that's a normal thing for the captains to do, but in my mind, like he definitely went like above and beyond to make sure that you guys were at least able to experience like some of the cruise, whatever was left of it. So I very much commend him for that. For the airport that kept mistaking your luggage, like even though their information was incorrect, at least they were keeping an eye out and at least they were staying connected with you guys. It's not like they were just going radio silent, because it could definitely go that other way as well. But yeah, I'm so glad that you guys eventually got your luggage and that you guys got to see some really cool places in the meantime, and hopefully you had a really fun time on your cruise. This next story says, Dear Natalie, in the Greek islands, our taxi driver accused us of putting a dent in the side of his cab after we gave the roof a tap to let him know that we were all out of the car. Oh, I get it. Like you guys got out of the car and then it's like, yep, see you later. The next thing I know, he has my friend by the throat. Okay. All of the locals came running out, pin us all against the wall until the cops rock up, 2 guys in no uniform, and chuck both of my friends in the car without asking any questions. What? Oh my gosh, that's very extreme. I run to the police station, a little dingy shack with no sign or anything, to find out that both of my mates attempted to run away because they didn't believe these men were police. They asked for ID, but were told to be quiet. They caught one of them, the other got away. As a result, the one who was caught was beaten up and chucked in a cell. Cue me. I rock up to the station to find none of these cops can barely speak English. The taxi driver is there going crazy, talking in Greek to these cops and pointing at me and then to his car. I know what he's telling them. I try to act out what happened by pointing to the dent in the back, shaking my head, and then miming tapping on the roof. They grab me and take me off the premise. As I wait out on the road, a friend of the taxi driver tries to fight me. I hold him away and say, no. One of the cops come out the front and sees us. Thankfully, this guy backs off. Eventually, they get this young cop, the only one who can speak English, to tell me that they won't talk to me until I bring my other mate back to the police station. This guy was reasonable. I later found out that he was the one who stopped the other cops from beating my friend in the cell to a pulp. Thank God. He told me as soon as I bring the other guy back that we can sort this all out. I run back to the hotel, grab my friend. Thankfully, he was there, and we head back. Anyway, long story short, they were saying we could either pay the taxi driver, the damages were worth 200 euros, or my friend would get taken to another island and put on trial. Oh God. Oh yeah, I guess because he like tried to escape. It was complete bull. I knew it, but we had to leave at 11 a.m. the next day, and it was already 4 a.m. I had enough. I just agreed to pay the money to the crooked son of a Really bad way to end what was such a great trip to Europe, but all was well in the end. We split the fine, and I got my friends out slightly in one piece. I bet the cops and the taxi driver split the cash too. Oh my gosh, that's such a difficult situation. Like, okay, let's talk about that for a second. Law enforcement in another country. First of all, I want to say who wrote this. Jim Eck on Reddit. I'm so glad that nothing worse happened to you and your friends and that you guys only had to pay 200 euros to essentially get out of that. Like, I hate that that happened to you, and that's such a tough situation to be in. So when traveling abroad, and I'm just gonna speak from a United States perspective, there are a lot of things that we do in the United States that might not necessarily be considered it might be considered rude in other countries, or it might be considered like threatening in other countries. Like even little things like tapping on the car. I would be very reserved with any sort of like impulsive gestures that you would typically do in your home country. Just reel it in, be very polite. Don't be the first one to initiate anything because it can be misconstrued real quick. Someone can misunderstand that. Then a situation like this could happen. And I can totally see where someone would think that that's so innocent. What's a tap on the taxi cab gonna do? How would somebody possibly find that threatening or claim that that was a dent that was made because of the tap? And I can see too why your friend would want to like run away if they suspect that the cops aren't real. I mean, I could definitely see that, but that's such a hard situation to be in. Maybe as well, whenever we're doing our research, going to other countries, maybe that is something to research is what does the police force look like? What do the police stations tend to look like in the areas that we go in? So that way, in case, God forbid, we would get into a situation like that, that we at least know that they're real cops and they're not just underground hoodlums posing as cops. So I can see why your friend would run away. However, when you're in another country, you have to abide by their rules and you just have to be as compliant as you possibly can because it's not your home country. The law doesn't operate in the same way that we're used to in our home countries. And honestly, 200 euros is a really, really good exchange as opposed to your friend having to go to a different island for trial, and that would have been just so horrible. So whether or not the cops were fake or real, I'm glad it was only 200 euros and I'm very glad that nothing worse happened. Okay, this story has a lot of French words in it, so if I pronounce anything wrong, please forgive me. Dear Natalie, from this incident, I always warned people not to go to Paris's Montmartre alone at night. Sorry if I butchered that. I had to Google how to pronounce that.
The middle is silent, so do not say Montmartre, but rather Montmartre. Montmartre.
Montmartre. Je ne parle pas français. 2 years ago, I was in Paris on a solo trip and went to Montmartre one night. After getting off the metro, I was dazzled by the beautifully lit Basilique du Sacré-Cœur on top of the hill. Those who've been there know what I'm talking about. Like a siren, Sacré-Cœur lured me to ascend the hill to reach her. Before I knew it though, I was already in the middle of the hill and a North African man walked towards me as he demanded, "Look here, look at me." I didn't pay him any attention and tried to walk to a different direction, but that's when I realized that I was suddenly surrounded by this man's comrades who seemed to come out of nowhere and made the same demand. "Look here, look at me." Oh, that's so scary. It didn't take long for them to encircle me, and all of them have blocked any route to escape. No one was around but me and them. The encirclement started to close in, and I quickly had to shuffle away to maintain arm's length distance. During my shuffle, I bumped into something, a bench, trash can maybe, pretty hard and made a very large noise. Suddenly, the encirclement stood still. One guy eventually took a step aside and told me to move on. I took my chance and bolted out of the opening. I didn't know what exactly happened then. Maybe I was about to be mugged by a gang. Maybe I was just getting messed with. Either way, this event was always in my mind to remind me that as a solo traveler who enjoys night walks, I must always stick with a crowd within shouting distance in case anything like this happens again. Oh my gosh, that's so scary. I'm so glad they didn't end up doing anything. And then like, that's just so confusing. Like anybody who's gonna come and try to intimidate you and circle you, say things like, "Look at me, look here," like, excuse me? And actually, this is very common whenever you travel in like larger cities, I would say. Like, it doesn't surprise me that this happened in Paris, honestly, especially when you're a solo traveler. Like, I typically don't go out at night if I'm traveling. Well, it depends on where I'm at. Definitely be mindful of where you walk around at night. Try to avoid walking around at night, especially if you're solo traveling. Yeah, I don't like that they did that. I don't know what they were looking to do, but I'm so glad that you ran into the trash can or whatever it was before they could do something to harm you. This story says, "Dear Natalie, I took the train from Vienna to Bratislava in the middle of the night in order to get to the airport early in the morning. I was the only one on the train other than the conductor, engineer, whatever. The train slowly came to a halt a little after the Slovakian border in the middle of the countryside on a dark platform, and the dude told me to get out." Oh my gosh. Confused and scared, I did so, and then the train left. What? Like it just left? I had about 2 minutes of utter panic before another guy came around the corner and directed me to the correct train, which started up just then. I hadn't known I was supposed to transfer. I arrived in Bratislava about 1:30 a.m. I disembarked and made my way through the tunnel under the tracks to come up inside the train station. The entire place was deserted. The lights were off, and I could hear dripping water echoing through the building. Oh my gosh, it's like a horror movie. I could see a circular drive outside with a few taxis waiting and a 24-hour snack stand. So so I decided to wait outside until the first buses began running and I could catch the correct one to the airport. However, the doors were locked. No, I couldn't get out. As I was trying all the doors to find an open one, a woman with wild eyes and wild hair appeared from outside, began hurling herself bodily at the glass doors, yelling and trying to get inside the station. God, what are with all these people like coming out from around the corner? Like first on the train telling you to get off, and then some guy directing you to the correct train. And then this woman, like, what? I skedaddled off to a deserted corner and sat down and cried a little bit because I was tired and scared. Oh, I realized that if any other person came into the station from the platforms, I was trapped and had no way to escape. Eventually, I steeled myself and went back out into the platform. I ended up clambering over the train tracks and walking alongside them for a very long time until the fence ended, where I came into a residential neighborhood. Luckily, I came across a policeman who directed me back to the station. I sat on a bench outside near the snack stand until morning came. There was no sign of the woman with the crazy eyes. Oh, wow. I don't even know what to say about this. Like, I wonder if the conductor, engineer, whoever it was that you were with, I wonder if they knew where you were going and they were trying to just direct you to transfer. They probably just didn't speak your language and didn't know how else to say you're supposed to transfer. But I would have been so scared and so confused if I were you. Like, super weird that there was just like another guy that came around the corner and like redirected you to the next train, like the correct train that you were supposed to take. And then the lady with like wild hair, like, ugh. I'm glad you didn't run into her again, at least. Like, that was my first thought when you were like walking around and when you like went back to the snack stand. One of the comments on this post says, "Are you sure the crazy-eyed woman wasn't you as a reflection trying to get out of the station?" Oh no. Maybe, I don't know. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, it sounds like this was a solo travel experience, especially if taking trains or something that like you're not used to doing, checking when your transfers are, if there are any transfers, and then I'm not entirely sure what platform you used to book the trains, if it was like there on site and maybe the directions just weren't clear enough, or maybe you were able to book in advance and maybe that web platform just wasn't as clear on like when your transfers were supposed to happen. But I would have cried as well. I would have called my mom. I'm very glad that you at least were able to get where you were going. This next story says, "Hi Natalie, at 15 years old on French exchange, my host family decided they didn't like me and I had to move to a new family. Oh, I'm sorry. Their etiquette for approaching the situation involved writing me a letter in French reading, 1 in France does not, followed by a list of strange accusations. Not showering enough, not washing my clothes enough. Sorry, Australians don't wash clothes until they're actually dirty. Stealing their food, being too friendly with boys at school. I was like totally a year older than those losers, no thanks. And going through their personal files on their computer. I'm in IT and fixed their lag box with the father's permission. And what would a 15-year-old have been looking for? Their tax files? The best part is that this happened on Christmas Eve while the exchange program offices were closed, so I got to spend an awkward Christmas with their extended family before I could get help after Boxing Day. Also in a small town with no other exchange students, totally alone. Their exchange program investigated, deciding that I was innocent and that the host mother sister were bat crazy. So instead of being sent home for misconduct, I got to move to a new family in Paris. So the remaining 3 weeks were awesome. Okay, good. Oh, that must have been so awkward. I'm so sorry. Like, at least like instead of like making your life miserable, like they just wrote a letter and you were able to like change families and you were able to go to like a bigger city, because it sounds like they were based in like a small town. But yeah, hopefully you got along much better with the new family that you had in Paris. That's super awkward that you had to spend Christmas with them though. Like if you were older, I'm sure that you would have been able to like go out and at least explore France a little bit, maybe travel a bit, but yeah, I'm sure you had to be like chaperoned in a sense. And just the things that they were accusing you of, it's almost like they were looking for things. And especially like not showering enough and not washing clothes enough. Like, sorry if you're a teenager and you're watching this. Teenagers are just smelly. Like, I feel like they are just overall smelly. You kind of sign up for that whenever you say like you're going to be accepting like an exchange student in like this exchange student program. Like if you're going to participate in the program, you kind of have to be prepared for something like that. Not saying that you smelled bad, but yeah, that's very weird. That's very rude. But I am glad that they wrote that letter so that way your life wasn't miserable and so that way you didn't have to spend more time with them than what you had to. This next story says, "Dear Natalie, I was 18 and it was my first time traveling alone. I went to Argentina for 3 months. My first weekend, I'm wandering around around Buenos Aires. At this time, I had enough Spanish to get by, and a man approaches me and asks for directions in Spanish. I tell him that I'm not from here. He then asks me if I'm a tourist. I say yes, and he seems delighted. Quickly, he's telling me that he is too. He offers up the idea to explore the city together. I, alone in the big city, agree. We start walking together. He seems like a really nice guy. After about an hour, he says, "Tengo hambre," I'm hungry. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and it's about 1, so we go to a nice restaurant. He tells me that I have to try the steaks and the red wine. I'm not much of a wine fan, but he convinces me. We were there for about an hour, and the bill comes. It's 140 pesos. He pulls out 100 pesos. I try to pay for my half, but he only lets me pay 40 pesos. He tells me that I can get the beers later. We continue on our little adventure and eventually come to a bar with outdoor seating. The waitress brings out a liter of beer and we relax. Soon enough, another liter comes out. We finish the second liter and leave this bar. Then I wake up 8 hours later, missing my debit card, iPod, cell phone, and travel guide. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh, I hate this for you. I'm so sorry. Ugh. That is literally so scary. I wish I knew where you ended up. It seems like you were at least safe, and thank God you only got like I don't want to say thank God you only got mugged, but like so much worse could have been done, and who knows, like maybe there was worse that's done that like you didn't share, and I really, really hope that's not the case. But yeah, definitely mind your alcohol intake whenever you're traveling, and just anytime you have like a beverage or food and you are around company that you are unfamiliar with and that you don't know, you have to watch that stuff like a hawk. If you're traveling solo especially, I have a rule where I don't have more than 2 drinks. Typically that's what I tend to do. I don't have more than 2 drinks. And even when I'm in my home city, I always watch my drink. And overall, just be very wary about starting a conversation with a stranger where you're not super familiar with them. And this story is the perfect example of that. I'm so sorry that this happened to you, and I'm glad that you at least got out of this. Okay, this next story says, "Hi Natalie, I was leaving from Pécs, Hungary to Zurich, catching a flight there back to Boston via JFK in New York City. To get to Zurich, I needed to take a 5-hour bus ride to Budapest, take the subway a few stops until I reached the main rail station. I was tired, hungry, thirsty, and really had to by the time I got to Budapest. I decided to carry on and hold it until I got to the main railway station. I don't end up my pants. Sorry to let you down. I make it there just in the nick of time. Something about holding it in for that long really exhausted me, and I just wanted to get on the train and sleep. After waiting 2 hours, my train arrived and I found my cabin. There were 2 portly Hungarian girls already there watching movies on their laptop, and they seemed very friendly and easygoing. I mingled a little to be friendly, but really just wanted to sleep. Then arrived disaster. These 2 Roma girls literally fell into our cabin, laughing their heads off and blasting dance music on their Nokias. They were blasting 2 different songs on 2 different Nokias. When was this written? Oh, this was written 12 years ago. No wonder there's a Nokia reference. I haven't seen that name in a while. I ride the subway every day in Boston, so I'm used to pricks who don't know how to use headphones, so I didn't think too much of it. They didn't speak a lick of English, but I guess they really took a liking to me, since every time I closed my eyes I would get poked in the side of the head and giggled at like I was an animal. They really wanted to talk to me through the other Hungarian girls, asking if I had a girlfriend, where I was from, occasionally breaking out a few lines of broken English themselves like, "handsome boy," while petting my head. I believe in personal space, but I also know trying to argue with them would probably be futile. After a while, I fell into one of my books, realizing I would soon get no sleep. I don't know at what point this happened, but somebody broke out a porno and put it on the Hungarian girl's laptop. What? I would get poked, shown the porno, and laughed at. Now, I'm no slouch. When it comes time to get nasty, I get nasty. Oh. But this was just not the time for this. I was not attracted to these girls. They smelled like a hockey player's foot, and I was going on 24 hours with no sleep. Plus, I had just left my girlfriend in Pécs, and I am still in love. Oh, did you guys break up? Oh, I wasn't gonna screw around. Good for you. Yeah. Don't screw around. That's not gonna lead to any good. Finally, one of them puts her hand on my junk, bites my ear and asks me, "You want sex me?" Which I replied, "Nem." I guess that means no. Taking her hand out of my lap. Good for you. Good for you. Then I got a barrage of, I don't know how to say this. I'll put it here. From the 2 Roma. Look it up. Okay, let's look it up. Okay, well, I don't like to curse, so I'll put it here bleeped out, and like you guys can connect the dots. I spent the next 6 hours with these girls, blasting music, poking me, berating me, and holding in a for fear of them rifling through my I guess I'm kind of a pushover in these situations. I didn't want to overreact or lose my cool. I just wanted the train ride to end without getting stabbed or raped by 2 girls. Yeah, I get that. I guess karma shifted my way in the long run. When we hit the Switzerland border, the girls were detained by Border Patrol. Perfect. Probably for being Roma. That sucks and everything, but I know that the Roma people have a bad rap in Europe. Oh. I didn't know that. But I hated these girls at this point. I hated them so hard. I got a good 1 hour of drifting in and out of naps, but I still felt like when we pulled into the Zurich train station. More good news when I arrived to Zurich airport. I found out they overbooked the flight and I had been bumped up to first class. Oh, I'm so glad. I went from sharing a cramped quarter with 2 Roma snookies to having a chair that turned into a bed, unlimited wine, and a 4-course meal. I'm sure somebody's had it worse, but I wanted to share my experience. I'm so sorry. I'm literally so... No one should ever have to put up with that. Like, I don't care if you're a man, woman, if you identify as like something different, no one should have to put up with essay, because that's exactly what they're doing. Like, you know, pushing porno into your face and then molesting you, not physically leaving you alone. Like, that is literally unacceptable. Like, I can see where you didn't feel comfortable doing anything else. You don't want them to do something worse and you don't want to like agitate them any further. I wish there would have been a way where you would have been able to at least like switch carriages. Maybe the train was full and you couldn't relocate, but I definitely wish that there would have been that option. I'm so sorry you had to go through that though. That's just so awful, but this literally makes my heart just like turn in a different way. Like, whenever somebody has experienced unwanted attention at the degree that it is, and I feel like it's not talked about enough. Like, women go through it and it's absolutely horrible, but men go through it as well. But yeah, absolutely not right that that happened to you. I'm so sorry that it did. I'm super glad that you were at least able to get into the first class cabin and that you had unlimited wine and you could lay flat and relax and sleep. And I am glad that they got detained. I'm sorry. Like, maybe they're wanted for other things as well, and maybe they were super dangerous. Maybe it's a good thing that's all they did with you. I hate that that happened to you, and I'm so sorry, and I'm super glad that at least you guys were able to be separated once you guys got to Switzerland. And with that, that's everything that I have for you for this horror stories video. If you want more travel horror stories, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss another video like this. Leave a comment below as well, your favorite story, as well as your thoughts on any of them. And I do encourage you to email me your travel horror story, and I can't wait to read them. Check out the description box below for instructions on how to send in your story. I upload travel horror stories every other week. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.